guys, I'm Woodcraft Hamster and welcome back to my Beginner's Guide to Carving series. Now today I want to talk to you about saws. Now I want to start this episode by saying something that's probably going to prove a little bit unpopular. But my personal opinion is that saws are actually a more important tool for wood carving than something like an axe. Now I will caveat that by saying that axes are very good carving tools. They will allow you to remove a lot of waste wood very quickly, and certainly once you've got your eye in and you know what you're doing, axes can be a real godsend and a real help. Especially if you're trying to produce a lot of things, but even if you're not, even if you only carve once in a while, I think a lot of people see the axe as a quintessential wood carving tool alongside a knife. The only reason I disagree with that is that without a good saw, without any kind of saw, if you're processing anything other than wood that's been pre-cut and given to you ready to be carved as it is extremely difficult to process wood, be that green wood or seasoned wood, without a saw. I'll give you a quick example. Let me just grab this random piece of eucalyptus I've got lying around. So here, it's a little bit too big actually, but never mind. But this piece of eucalyptus, it doesn't matter what wood it is. This is a thick branch, a small log, call it what you like. Now, if I was going to be carving, say, a spoon out of this, I would probably want this little top section here. Now, what are my choices? I can sit there and hack at it with a knife, which I'm not going to do, or I can use my axe and I can sit there and hack away at this until I have broken this off. The problem with that is that what will happen is you will be left with a very unclean cut. Now, for the purposes of splitting, which I think is very important when you're breaking down a piece of wood into a manageable section, to do that with a very rough piece on the end, and let's be honest, if you don't have any kind of saw, you're not even going to have one end like that did, that's nice and flat. Now yes, you can kind of take your log and you can lay it on your bench, lay your axe over the top of it and either batten it in or kind of hit it against your log and eventually split it. But for time and efficiency, having a nice, let's use this as an example, this is a little offcut here, so being able to put this on my workbench, taking an axe, but let's pretend that's what this is, and putting it on there and then splitting it down either by battening or by hitting it directly with the axe, takes away so much time and effort and is a much safer way of doing it. Now, I've fallen foul of this before in the past. Years ago I went away with nothing but an axe, and even simple things like trying to process firewood is a lot more difficult if you don't use a saw. So that's the reason for my statement. And to be honest, saws, I've got a selection here which I'll show you in a moment. Saws are not particularly difficult or expensive to come by. You can go out and spend a reasonable amount of money on something nice. You can go out and spend very little money on something really basic. And that's what I want to talk about today. So I'm going to very quickly run through the saws I've got here. Really, in my mind, they come in two flavours. You've either got green woodworking saws or you've got seasoned wood saws. Now, depending on what type of carving you're doing and what you've got available to you, will very much depend on what kind of saw you use. I find that over time I've got both. The reason being is, although I'm fortunate enough to be able to go and harvest and use my own green wood, a lot of the time it sits around in my workshop for some time, and eventually it seasons. So then I'm using a combination of green and seasoned wood. Now, the first two saws, which are the most expensive, and a bit like the axe video, I'll run through sort of the costs of these for you later on. The first two saws, and I'll show you them both at the same time, save a bit of time. These are Silky Saws. You may have heard the name. These are kind of considered relatively high-end arborist saws, the kind of things that tree surgeons use, professionals who are cutting down green wood on a regular basis. Now, I like both of these. This is the Gontaro, it's a slightly smaller saw, and this is the Zubat. They both work really well for different reasons. The Zubat I like to take with me if I'm harvesting wood because it's a slightly longer saw and it's got a curved blade. It's really good for cutting into branches or small logs. The Zubat I tend to use more, the Gontaro I tend to use more in my workshop when I'm cutting down green wood for processing it ready for carving. Now, these are, as I say, sort of slightly professional style saws. This one here, the Zubat, will cost you around £60 online. They all come with these kind of really nice little sheaths, so you can sort of have it dangling off your belt or your pack if you're out in the woods. And the Gontaro will cost you, I think, about £50. So they're not cheap saws, but they are very, very good at what they do, which is cutting through green wood. On the flip side, you've got something like this. Now everyone will be familiar with these. It's a standard wood saw. It's designed for cutting season dried wood, and it excels at that really well. But if you try cutting green wood with it, it will work, don't get me wrong, but it's a lot more difficult, it's a lot harder to do. And in comparison, you can pick one of these up from a DIY store, £5 to £10. I've had this one for probably about 3 years. I use it regularly. The blades and the teeth are still perfectly sharp. And this is kind of the two ends of the spectrum. This is what I'll generally use for cutting my seasoned wood because it goes through it like butter. If I try doing that with one of these, again, one of these saws, if you want a one size fits all, you can cut seasoned wood with this. It just doesn't do it very well or very efficiently. So those are really sort of your two ends of the spectrum. And I've got a couple of other ones here I just wanted to show you very quickly. I want to make this a quick video. This is something a little bit more specialist. This is a Japanese Catawba saw. It's designed for woodwork, it's designed for dry wood, for seasoned wood. It will cut green, but that's not what it excels at. Now these have got, in comparison, let me just bring the two of these up close to each other and hopefully I can get that. It's got a much thinner blade, and that's because it's used for detail work. These are generally used for things like cutting out joints and dovetails and those kind of things. But for me, when I use this for things like spoons and for smaller carvings where I've been carving away, I've left some excess, so I've basically got something to hold on to. And when I'm ready to shorten it down to the actual length I want it, this will kind of whiz through it really, really quickly, and you get a really nice, fine, clean cut. And this thing, I mean, what do I say these are costing? I mean, this will cost you maybe £30. You can get them cheaper online if you shop around, but I think this cost me about £25–30. And again, I use this really, really regularly. I've got a smaller version of it up on my workshop. I won't bother showing you that, but these come in different shapes and sizes. Some of them come with a strengthening band on the top, a bit like a tenon saw. I find that for me, I like to be able to cut all the way through with my saw. That's just personal preference. And then the last one, it wouldn't be a video about saws without me showing you this. This is the Bahco Laplander. Any of you that are into bushcraft will be familiar with this. It is a folding saw. It goes in your pack, you can slip it into your pocket, and it can go everywhere with you. It's nice and small, it's got a little locking button on there, and you open it up, and this is designed again for cutting green wood. You can cut seasoned with it, but again it doesn't do it very well. But this is for branches. I don't know, you could probably do I have done very small logs with this, but you kind of have to come in at the top and then work it round, and you won't go all the way through in one go. But these are kind of like the mainstay of bushcraft saws. Anyone that's doing spoon carving, unless you're trying to cut off great big logs and then split them down into eighths or tenths to get loads of spoons out of them, most of the time you're looking at anything between 4 to 6 inches that you're going to split in half and make 2 spoons out of. That's what I do anyway, and these are absolutely ideal for that. And you'll get one of these probably £15 online delivered. I've used one of these for years. This is probably my 3rd one. One of them I lost, one of them I broke due to being an idiot, and one of them I gave to a friend because he was after a saw, and I said, well, I have mine, I've got a couple of others, and I ended up replacing it anyway. So that is my view, that's my take on saws for carving. Again, things like the arborist saws, they're great if you're into bushcraft, as well as the Laplander in fact, because you can use a multi-purpose tool. Things like these are great for firewood. I know I said they're meant to be for green wood, but they work really well if you've got sort of dead standing dry wood out in the field. They cut it really, really well. When I say seasoned wood, I'm talking like the kind of thing that you'll buy from a timber merchant, seasoned pine and that kind of things for construction. They don't work well on. This, on the other hand, will work really, really well for that. And don't get me wrong, you know, I mentioned this in my video on this series about picking different types of wood. There is nothing wrong with carving construction type woods. If that's all you've got available, you can certainly do it. It will be a slightly different method of carving, and you need to have a bit of a better feel for it. But you know, it's perfectly doable. And the benefit is you can pick one of these up, you know, very, very cheaply. The other thing I haven't got here that I was going to mention, which a lot of people use for both bushcraft and carving, are bow saws. Again, you can get that, you know, it's essentially just a bow shape, a D shape, that has interchangeable blades. So you can get blades that are good for green wood, you can get blades that are good for seasoned wood. So it's kind of like a jack of all trades. You know, you can get folding ones, so you can slip them into a pack really, really easily. And that's the benefit of those kind of saws. These are the ones I primarily tend to use because, you know, because I have something like this. You know, this is a good quality arborist saw, greenwood saw. You know, I don't need a bow saw because I have one of these, and it takes up just as little space. So, you know, I don't personally need a bow saw, but if you're looking for something with a few other options, you know, it's something to think about. So anyway, guys, I've rambled on long enough. As I say, the real thing about this video is for what I wanted to get across was that, as far as I'm concerned, having a saw, a good quality saw like one of these, is actually more important than having something like an axe. Now, using an axe for wood carving, I think, you know, most people will agree, is pretty much quintessential for wood carving. And I'm not saying don't buy an axe, but I'm saying if you have to choose between the two, especially early on, get yourself a cheap saw. That will allow you to kind of cut through and harvest and process down your carving wood ready to be done. Now, you know, it is a little bit more effort, it's a lot more work, but you can carve, say, a spoon from something like this, which is just a worked down log that I've split down into, I don't know, probably eighths or something like that. And you know, you can turn this into something like a spoon with just a knife. It's not the way I'd choose to do it, and you know, given the option, I would use an axe and then a knife. But you know, if you don't have that option, or you're just starting out, don't want to spend a load of money, it's perfectly doable. And actually, it will probably help you in the long run, learning a bit more about the grain of the wood and how the wood reacts to certain cuts, than just going straight in full blazing with an axe and hacking away at it. So anyway, guys, as I say, I've rambled on long enough. Hope it was useful. Comments and questions in the box below. Hit like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I hope you'll all join me next time. Cheers, guys.